The House Education Committee will come to order. Will the clerk please take attendance?
Chair Colazar.
Here.
Representatives Churches.
Present.
Shannon.
Present.
Stone.
Here.
Weiss.
Here.
Glanville.
Present.
Conlon.
Here.
Edwards.
Here.
Wagella.
Here.
Green.
Here.
Markkinen. Paquette.
Here.
Wenzel.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Representative Conlon moves to approve the minutes of the March 7th meeting without objection, so ordered. Today, we will be taking testimony on House Bill 4166, which has to do with repealing the A through F ranking system for schools. First off, I will be offering a sub. Can I get a motion? Or do I need a motion? Can I get a motion to adopt the sub? Rep. Stone makes that motion. Will the clerk please take the roll?
On the motion to adopt the substitute, Chair Colazar.
Yes.
Representatives Churches.
Yes.
Shannon.
Yes.
Stone.
Yes.
Weiss.
Yes.
Glanville.
Yes.
Conlon.
Yes.
Edwards.
Yes.
Wagella.
Yes.
Green.
Pass.
Markkinen. Paquette. Wenzel. Johnson.
Pass.
Mr. Chair, you have 9 yeas, 0 nays, 2 passes. The substitute is adopted.
Okay, thank you. I will be giving testimony on this bill, so momentarily we will go at ease.
Committee will return to order. Rep. Colazar?
Thank you very much. Thank you, members of the committee, for taking testimony here today. First of all, I would like to thank not just the members of the committee, but the numerous stakeholder groups who have weighed in on this legislation, including MDE, MASA, MAPSA, MASB, and MASSP, among others. They've all weighed in, and it's very much appreciated. School accountability is important. The A through F system that was passed in lame duck 2018 falls woefully short. For starters, this rushed through during lame duck at 3 a.m. system does not meet federal standards. Additionally, 2 state-approved systems that say different things is very confusing for families. We have the federally approved Michigan School Index system, which operates under our federally approved plan. The index uses a 1 through 100 ranking system factoring in student growth, proficiency, graduation rates, English learner process, attendance rates, advanced coursework completion, post-secondary enrollment, and staffing ratios. The A through F system judges school performance based on student academic performance, student growth, English learner progress, graduation rates, and the academic performance of students compared to students in demographically similar schools. The A through F system has also been criticized by many school officials, citing that it is too simplistic and could unfairly hit schools with a bad grade overall when the school is improving in some areas. It is also argued that the system is overly general. At the end of the day, the massive failure of the A through F law is it being not in compliance with federal law and actually sends contradictory information about school performance when looking at the index system. I think we can all agree that giving parents and families contradictory information within 2 different systems does nothing productive. In fact, the one thing I can assure you is that it causes confusion. When you have 2 rival systems, the choice is clear. The system that does not meet federal standards is the one that should be repealed, and 4166 does just that. There are several experts who wish to give testimony today, but I'd be happy to answer some questions first. Thank you.
Okay. It doesn't seem as... Oh, question? Rep. Green?
Well, and this may be, thank you for what you're doing and coming and testifying. So this morning I got the House fiscal analysis on what happens. You know, we read that. It gives us an analysis of what happens if we remove this. So I understand, and I've been comparing the index system and the grade system. And actually, both systems are confusing because when I was looking at Emily City compared to Richmond, one got a B, one got a C, but their index score was very close. So it was hard to tell what was a good school, what was a bad school. Specifically, my question though for you is when we remove the A through F, the House Fiscal Analysis said that we will no longer know what the lowest performing schools are. So, with that said, then how do we determine what the lowest performing schools are then?
The index system still will address that. And I know the MDE is going to be here and they're going to explain that in great detail because obviously it's important. We want to know who needs the most support. I would 100% agree with you on that we need to make sure we're supporting those who need it the most.
Okay, and so
That will be addressed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Green. We have a question from Rep. Paquette.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Chair, for your testimony. You mentioned that the A through F system hasn't been meeting federal standards. I guess my first question, because I've got two of them, would be, what are the repercussions of that? What have they been doing to us? I guess since we haven't been meeting federal standards with A through F.
So because we also have one that does meet federal standards, they don't do anything to us. The issue is when parents are looking for reports on their schools, whether it be their local schools or a different school, it's often very confusing and very contradictory when you have two competing systems.
Gotcha. Okay. So when I'm looking at the systems and I'm comparing the school I used to teach at with mine, where I used to teach, and I'm looking at, like, for instance, the growth index at Plymouth High School is 72.58, and the growth index at my high school, Niles, is 63.39. For a parent who's looking at that, what specifically does that mean, and could you break that down for us?
Well, and again, to that question, well, first of all, it breaks down a lot of different factors that I mentioned, all the listed things that it factors into that score. So it does break that down. There still is a dashboard as well. But in terms of even getting more granular than that, I'm going to turn that one over to MDE here in a minute. But the main thing is those different categories that I had mentioned, like student growth, proficiency, graduation rates, English learner process, attendance rates, advanced coursework completion, post-secondary enrollment, staffing ratios. It is all of that makes that score up.
Yeah, so in the growth index there and comparison between schools, because we have school choice, I think you're a believer in school choice. And when a parent is choosing a school, they'll go to the data and they'll look at these numbers. And with the A through F system, I at least can see, the performance among other schools and, where my school aligns with yours. Your school appears to be doing better in all the data categories, right? So, as a parent in understanding letters, they went through K-12 most likely in their days, and they're able to understand a grade and the breakdown. When I'm looking at these index scores, I'm just finding them a little bit more overwhelming, and in terms of what they even mean, especially with some of these numbers and comparisons. That's why I asked. So, like, when you advocate for removing A through F and going to these index scores, like, do you find them to be simple to understand when, especially from a parent lens of choosing a school?
Well, I'm all for making sure that parents have information that's easily accessible and easy to digest. You and I think, have no disagreement on that. Certainly, I would admit there were challenges with the index. I think there's challenges with A through F. I think A through F system is overly simplistic, and that is a problem as well. In the future, if you see ways of making the index system better or another federally approved system that we could use instead, I'd be happy to have that conversation in the future.
Okay, so when you have an overly simplistic system plus an overly complex system, doesn't that kind of beg the, I guess, desire to have both of them, since you have one that's a little overly complex and one that's overly simplistic? Doesn't that, in combination, at least help a little bit more? Because if we just slash this one without having something to put in place, like, shouldn't we have it put in place before we slash it, or maybe make a package in tandem before we, again, keep on, like, making the shifting sands of education policy continue from new term to new term?
I think that having two systems that give contradictory information is inherently even more confusing. To say that one is helping the other is just simply not true. They offer contradictory information, therefore create confusion. At least with one system, even if it's a little more difficult to digest, at the very minimum, it is one set standard that gives you a set number that you can go on rather than having conflicting systems. So no, I think doing it where you have both of them in there actually creates a lot more confusion than it solves.
Okay, so I'm looking at Niles and Plymouth, the index score and the A through F scores, and they appear to align. Your numbers at Plymouth High School are higher than Niles High School in every category. What exactly is conflicting here? I guess, where is the conflict?
Well, I don't have Niles and Plymouth scores in front of me, so I can't necessarily.
So, well, you're saying
expand on
overall
that.
they're conflicting, and I've just got two specific examples up. So, where is the overall conflict that I guess was the impetus for this bill that you or to the removal of A through F? Where do you find the common conflict between the
Well, a lot of feedback that was coming in, especially when I talked to the Department of Education, was that there were numerous parents around the state who said, "Wait a minute, my score is this, but then my grade is much lower, or my grade is much higher, but my score is this. Why is that happening?" I can't necessarily use that cite, Plymouth versus Niles, but there are districts around the state where you could actively make that comparison.
Okay, thank you. Looking forward to hearing them.
Thank you. We have another question. Rep. Glanville.
Thank you. To get to this question, I think what I need some clarity on and how I understand it, so maybe you can support this or correct me if I'm wrong. If somebody were looking at these scores, the next step, if they have a question, would be to contact their local school and ask them to explain that data a little bit more in detail. Is that correct?
Absolutely. You can call your local school. There's also contacts within the Department of Education as well. There's numerous. I would start with my local administration. I think that's the best bet.
Okay. So, and that's what I just want to clarify is that we are not taking away information from parents. We're actually giving them more information. And yeah, that can maybe be overwhelming, but in order for them to make a truly informed decision about the school they want to send their children to, they should have as much information as possible. A to F is 5 items. And and F isn't 0. F is what, 50? So you've got a whole, there's a whole, range of data in there that is not explained to parents as to why this is the particular grade. There's not an A+, A-, B+, B-, right? So we have these broad ranges throughout an A to F system that do not provide adequate information for parents to make that decision. So again, although it may be more complex to have more data, that is where I think you get the best information is that, I guess.
I would agree.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
It seems as though you have no more questions. We will go at ease.
Okay, we'll come back to order. Our first group to testify will be from the Michigan Department of Education, and it is Dr. Sue Carnell and Mr. Chris Janzer.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair Colazar and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about the state A to F accountability system today. With me is Mr. Chris Janzer, Assistant Director of Accountability in the Office of Educational Assessment and Accountability at the Michigan Department of Education. And my name is Sue Carnell. I serve as Chief Deputy Superintendent for the Michigan Department of Education. Chris and I will present background on our 2 current accountability systems, the school index system and our federal accountability system and its related requirements, and the state A to F accountability system and its associated requirements, while demonstrating why we believe the state law on the A to F accountability system should be repealed. In the state A to F accountability system, also known as Michigan school grades, it was adopted during lame duck session in 2018. Public Act 601 of that year amended the revised school code to require the Michigan Department of Education to create a school grading system that assigns each eligible public school in Michigan letter grades between A to F based on its achievement in 5 specified categories, as well as ranking in an additional 3 categories on an annual basis. These 8 categories are proficiency, growth, graduation rate, English learner progress, performance among peers, chronic absenteeism, assessment participation, and subgroup performance. In contrast, the school index has 11 components that include and go beyond the categories contained in the A to F system. These components include student growth, student proficiency, graduation rate, English learner EL progress, subject test participation, EL test participation, and school quality / school success. In the school quality, school success, there are the following subcategories. They include chronic absenteeism, access to arts and physical education, advanced coursework, post-secondary enrollment, and access to a librarian. The intent of A to F was to improve the national educational ranking of Michigan. However, the reality is that the state A to F accountability system is redundant, confusing, and pales in comparison to the federally required school index system. The state A to F accountability system is duplicative. Michigan already has requirements associated with every Student Succeed Act. This federally compliant school index system for accountability meets federal legislative requirements. In 2015, ESSA required that each state establish a statewide accountability system for public schools and includes mandate requiring that what must be in a state accountability system. The A to F was legislated without review of alignment to the federal ESEA requirements, and as such, A to F cannot be used as a single accountability system for Michigan.
All right. Thanks, Sue. Good morning. So while there are some commonalities between the A to F and school index systems, there are critical differences between the two. For example, the A to F system exempts certain schools from labels and identification if they are identified as a center program, a strict discipline academy, or a program for adjudicated youth. Such schools are designated as alternative education campuses, or AECs. And they are not included in any summary designations, nor are they given a letter grade or ranking label. There are approximately 300 schools listed as AECs, which represents about 10% of all schools. In contrast, ESSA, or the school index, requires that all public schools are included in the approved accountability system.
Another key difference is the definition or criteria used in determining comprehensive support and improvement schools, or otherwise known as CSI, which are described as the lowest achieving schools. ESSA requires all indicators to be used in determining CSI schools, while A to F system does not. Additionally, the A to F limits CSI schools to no more than 5% of the lowest achieving school only eligible for the A to F system. In contrast, ESSA requires states to identify schools with the low graduation rate in addition to the lowest achieving 5%. Ultimately, because of these federal and state requirements, Michigan has both federal CSI schools and state CSI schools.
Federal requirements specifically allow for one very limited exemption from state testing. English learner students in their first year in a United States public school are allowed to skip a state's English language arts assessment. All other students are required to participate in state assessments for the grade levels in which they are given. The A to F system, however, exempted all pupils eligible for special education programs and services from Michigan testing requirements. This is a violation of at least 2 requirements of federal law in ESSA. These requirements speak to the participation of children with disabilities in assessments and the need for them to be included in the statewide accountability system as a subgroup of students.
Currently, the Charter School Code has accountability requirements referenced in the A to F law. We support recommendation to maintain these accountability requirements in the same form and manner, except now as measured by the federally required school index system in every Student Succeed Act, Public Law 11495.
Okay, so now looking at system outputs, we'll highlight some outcomes and reporting. Both the school index and the A to F system have run for 4 cycles. The A to F system was created after the school index. However, the school index was waived for 2 years during the pandemic. In the most recent cycle's results, each system included 3,370 public schools and charter schools. Differences in outcomes shown here on this slide are largely due to the precision of the school index compared to the A to F system and the exemption of certain school types from receiving letter grades and labels in the A to F system. Public reporting is done through My School Data. In front of you are handouts with visual examples of each system. Both systems are reported at a school building level and include overview pages showing schools' performance on each measure as well as an overall value for the school index. Users of the school index report can see additional detail by clicking on any of the tiles on the overview page. This is to fulfill federal requirements in the disaggregation of student subgroup data and also aid in providing additional context for providing support and technical assistance to schools. For example, schools may refer to the school index's detail on English language arts performance as a starting point to an analysis of literacy challenges within the school.
And lastly, transparency. One of the concerns we heard during the implementation of ESSA and the school index was that required reporting on school performance was not straightforward and relied too heavily on standardized testing. Out of those concerns, the State Board of Education initiated the development of a dashboard for parents. MDE developed this parent dashboard using parent focus groups and launched the dashboard in January of 2018. With over 2 million visits in its first 2 years, parents and school staff have demonstrated the accessibility, transparency, and usefulness of a system that focuses on parents' needs. Thank you for this opportunity to present to you today. We look forward to your swift repeal of this duplicative accountability system that does not align with federal requirements and takes valuable time away from working directly with students to improve their achievement.
Thank you for your testimony today. Do we have any questions from the committee? Rep Weiss? Weiss, Green.
I just wanted to make sure, just review one of the points that you made. So currently, under the current A through F system, students with disabilities, and I'm assuming that is any student with an IEP, is that correct, are exempt from the testing requirement for the A through F system. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
And additionally, public school academies are measured through the A through F system currently, not through the federal guidelines. Is that also accurate?
They're included in both.
They are included in both. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Representative Green.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation today. So one of the questions I have, is the issue with the letter grade or the metrics using the 2 systems? Is that what it is? Is it the metrics or is it the actual grade?
It is both. It is a system that is duplicative of a system that we already have.
Okay, no, I understand that, and it seems like both have different metrics using for measurement. So when I look on, so I'm looking on Imlay City, one of the schools, and I'm looking on the parent dashboard, and I see that like these performance, and it's, you said it was 1 through 100, and I see, the first thing I see, like not knowing, taking all this hat off, I see 32%, 40%, 37%. So it, to me, in my mind, just as a layman looking at this, wow, this school isn't performing really well. But that might not necessarily be true because, and this is where, set aside the metrics that the A through F uses, but is there a way then to apply something easier to understand to this metric system?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the parent dashboard that we.
I'm there right now.
Yeah.
It still does. To me, my mind is this is not a well-performing school. How I'm reading this, but that might not be true.
Right. So the parent dashboard just reports out what we call raw performance. It doesn't get filtered through different methodologies for determining high stakes accountability outcomes. So when you're looking at the parent dashboard, that 32% is essentially the percentage of students that were proficient on the assessment that whatever you're looking at there.
So then in my mind then, because we have a grading system, the A, B, C, D, E, F, I would say that this 32% is failing.
I'm not sure why you would say that. The accountability system, either the A to F or the school index, was to improve the performance of students in schools. So we look at the bottom 5%, which is what the accountability system was made for. Identifying the lowest bottom 5% and providing support to those schools who are performing at the lowest bottom 5% to make them better. So I'm not sure why 32% you would say that school is failing.
I guess so I'm moving from Florida to Michigan.
Okay.
And I'm looking at school districts. What would be an easy way for a parent then to understand that this is a good school?
So we steer parents to the parent dashboard.
And that's, I guess that's where I am, and that's where I understand the metrics behind the A through F. Like I understand the base of that getting rid of. Like I'm not gonna fight you on that. I guess what I'm looking for is something easier for parents to know how their school is performing and or to be attractive. We want to attract people to the state of Michigan. We want, everybody has these economic development commissions or chamber of commerce, all these things that you want to make your town the best. And so how would I then say, we've got an A school, we've got a B school, we've got a C school? I guess that's where, do you see what I'm saying? How it's simple? The A through F in our minds made it more simple. Now I understand the metrics behind that grading system is not, and I think we're all agreeing that this doesn't work. But this doesn't work though either. I know you guys, in your head, it might seem easy, but as a parent looking at this, it's not easy. And I wish there was a way we could come together and find something that will work that will hold schools accountable, that will help low-performing schools bring them up. And of course, even high-performing schools, we want to move the goalpost because we want to make them better. And so then, but then also as a layman, how can I know that my school is doing good?
And part of the A to F system, as well as the school index, but through the parent dashboard, provides an opportunity for parents to compare schools. So the 32% you may be looking at one school, and you find another school that is at 12%, then that's your comparison.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Also, if I'm a parent looking at this, the overall index score would definitely be an indicator, would it not?
Yes.
Yeah, you could use those to compare as well.
And also, it would be helpful to probably contact local school administrators as well and have them explain it to me if I'm not.
Yes, that's a great point.
Connecting
If
it.
I may also mention that beyond just looking at the what's on the parent dashboard, once you arrive in Michigan, we hope that you go into schools and visit the administration to get a feel.
Thank you. Representative Churches.
Oh, sorry about that. Thank you. So I taught for 10 years in 2 different public school districts, and we made the transition from traditional grades, A through F, to standards-based grading. And this happens for most elementary schools in our state. It is a best practice, and instead of getting an A or a B or a C in reading or science or social studies, it's based on the Common Core standards. And when I had parents come to student parent-teacher conferences, it is often confusing at first, right? But I think once I built those relationships and I was able to explain, this is the achievement for adding and subtracting fractions with unlike denominators. This is dividing decimals. This is this, and it breaks each subject down into the specific performance tasks that we need to see achieved. Would you say that this model is similar to that of what we use to assess our elementary school students in this state?
Yes, breaking away from the A to F system, even in grading, may be difficult for parents to understand at the beginning, but what the benefit of going to standard-based or with the index system, you learn a lot more about what a child can do or cannot do based on the standard. It is more specific, it is more targeted. You walk away saying, this student can do this student can do fractions versus they can do math.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Paquette.
Hey, thank you, and thank you for your presentation. Just a quick question: was A through F meant to replace the school index system?
Yes, it was.
Okay, thank you for that. And then with the parent dashboard is a lot clearer, I will absolutely say, and reducing regulation and burdens on school districts, I can definitely get on board with that. But with the information that parents gave when you gathered that, I think you said in 2018, when you were trying to work on getting those clearer metrics out for parents and make it more straightforward, how did you gather that parent information? How'd they weigh in?
Sure. So we had a series of parent focus groups. I don't recall the number off the top of my head, but we basically spent a year working with parent focus groups. We did what we call user testing with parents. So once the parent dashboard was functional, but before it was public, we then tested it out with parents as well to make sure that what we heard them say they were looking for was available on the parent dashboard. So there was a huge parent involvement piece to building that.
Okay. And so, and I've got to bring it up. And this dashboard is, I bring up my school and I go down and I look at it, and it has a drop-down menu of, student group, it says, and then it describes a whole list of things based on race, gender, and then also like ELL or student with disabilities or economically disadvantaged. Is this drop-down menu for parents when they're looking at a school, is it meant for them to plug in like, oh, my student is, male, and then to disseminate the information that way? Like, why is this breakdown here for parents? Are they meant to plug in the race of their student before they choose a school?
Yes, that's exactly it, Representative. One of the themes that we heard during those focus groups was parents were interested in what a school might look like for a student like a child like their own.
Okay, so it's designed for a parent to be like, I want to see if this school does good for males or does good for females.
Yeah, I think the parent feedback was more in terms of, my student has an IEP. What does the school look like for a student like mine, like that sort of thing. But yes, we included all of the student groups that we do in all of our reporting.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Representative Wagella.
Thank you for your testimony today. So I was an educator for 7.5 years, taught here and in Arizona, and some differences in the systems. But I think one thing I really wanted to kind of point out today is that both systems are flawed, right? We're looking at ways of measuring schools that do not They include things like chronic absenteeism and standardized test scores, which are harmful measurement tools, especially in districts of poverty. I mean, if you look at school grades throughout the state, you're going to see a clear difference in the income levels of areas. I say this because I also think, families don't look at schools to choose to send their kids from only on a statewide index score, right? It's about relationships. It's about the culture at the school. It's about having community programs, et cetera. And I think the problem with our current system, right, is that we have two systems when we only need federally mandated to have one. So in my view, thank you for testifying, because I think having parents have one place to go is much better. But does this, I guess my question is, would this change anything to the accountability systems that are already in place? It's just a different measurement, correct? Is that my understanding?
Go ahead.
Yeah, you're correct. Yeah, this wouldn't change any of our federal approval. We're fulfilling all those requirements already.
Thank you.
And if I can add, this is my second time at the department. My first time at the department, I was director of the Office of School Excellence, and in that role, I helped the department develop accountability systems. So I understand your point about accountability systems being flawed in this case, both of them. But in my work with accountability system, the school index is one of the best I've seen in a long time.
Thank you. Representative Glanville.
Yeah, just to follow up on that a little bit, and with your comment, I would agree that although no system is ever perfect, I do believe, and I think the school index system demonstrates again, because of the granularity, that we are able to see where there are weaknesses, where districts aren't equitable. We can pick out the districts that don't have librarians or libraries. We can pick out the districts that do not provide art instruction, phys ed, whatever that is. And that granular system allows us to then go to those districts, or for those districts to self-reflect and look for ways to make those improvements so that they can have better achievements for all students. And so I think, again, as we compare these two systems, it's a waste for us to be in a duplicative system. And if we're going to pick one over the other, I would go with the one that provides more data for parents, for students, for teachers, for administrators, for lawmakers, so that we have the information we need to make the best decisions we can for our schools.
Thank you for that. And also, if I can add, you may notice that I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. I used to be a teacher and a superintendent, and in a local district receiving the school index system as well as the A/F system. The school index system provided me much more information to make better decisions about the direction to go to help my students or staff provide a quality education for students. So I was in Detroit Public Schools, Wayne Westland Public Schools, Westwood, and Southgate. Somebody is from down, yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? Representative Conlon?
Hi, thank you so much for your testimony. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had a question along the lines of what Representative Weigela was saying. I just wonder, in reality, how do parents use these? Do you see everybody flocking to that top school of this that's in the index? Or do people, as he said, visit the school, see like the culture? And I mean, do these determine whether people want to go to a school, or just one school completely empty because they're at the bottom of the list? I mean, obviously not, but
Yeah.
that's my question.
Yes, great question. Thank you. It's a mixed bag. We have parents who love their neighborhood school, and survey results show that parents love their neighborhood school. Their kids grow up in the neighborhood. They want their children to attend a neighborhood school. We also have parents who, because of school of choice, will visit schools. We had a number of parents who wanted to visit our high school and compare it to other high schools in the surrounding area. So visits made a huge impact on the climate and culture of the school. And then we have parents who look at the data and then also decide, well, I'm looking at the data, I'm also going to visit the school based on what I see from the data.
Thank you. Last call, and then I'm going to, do we have anyone else? Okay, I've got two more reps, Johnson and Weiss, and then that'll be it, because we do have a few others that do wish to testify. So Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for being here. First of all, I think we all, more than anything, we want to know, and not that you can answer it simply here, but we want to know that we're bringing the right solutions for any low performing school. However, we get to that point where we decide we've got to assist more or find out whatever we have to do in that community to help. But looking at these two comparisons, and it looks like 4 cycles, are we catching more or fewer underperforming or low performing schools with the index system?
We are catching more schools that are at the below the 5%. And for a whole nother conversation, because of the information we have in the school index, the department has beefed up its supports to schools identified as CSI because of the information we have through the school index. So our support is more targeted based on the information we have on the school index.
Thank you. Rep. Weiss.
Thank you. I just wanted to reiterate again for my last question for the A through F system, the fact that students with IEPs are not evaluated in that system, I think is a huge disservice to parents and families across the state. If I had a child with an IEP and I was looking at that data would mean nothing to me if I didn't know if schools were being assessed based on students with special needs.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for coming in today. Appreciate it. Next up, representing MAPSA, we have Dan Quisenberry, and I hope I say this name right, Doctor. Is it Tycho Jones? Tisha? Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. I'm Dan Quisenberry with the Michigan Charter School Association. I appreciate the conversation you all just had. There were questions about charter schools and how these two systems apply to them, so we're hoping to provide some clarity about that. I wanted to speak to that, and I brought an expert because I'm not an educator. So it's really important, as you've discussed, that the role of accountability in Michigan to get our kids back on track is important. But it's academic accountability is a key part of what makes charter schools unique. It's a centerpiece of our performance contracts, which is the charter. So it's really has some unique impact on us, what systems we have in Michigan, how consistent they are, how transparent they are, and all the aspects of them. So these bills mean a lot to us. Just some quick background, if I can. There's 294 public charter schools in the state of Michigan, about 150,000 kids, and they are located proportionately around the state. We are seeing the schools meet the needs of those that are largely underserved populations. We see student success at them, and they're growing in public support and popularity. So underserved students means 75% of our students live below the poverty line. That's compared to 48% in traditional schools. Or in another case, 50% of our students are African American compared to 14% in traditional schools. I'm just saying we meet needs where they exist in communities. Academic success, generally, without doing a lot of research, they're more likely to be proficient, more likely to be successful in graduating, more likely to have success after their school experience because of their charter school experience. Just as a quick example, 8 of the top 10 high schools in the city of Detroit that enroll kids in college are charter schools. And they are very popular with parents, and I don't think it's popularity, it's because of some of the things that are being expressed here. Our kids learn differently, they're very unique, so when you have multiple kids, you're looking for a school that best meets the needs of those kids, and so they're popular and in public support, whether you're a Republican or Democrat or whatever your demographic is, those support numbers increase and continue to increase every year, including in union households, Mr. Chairman. I think that's always good to say. But the charter, what are they? There's a lot of things we could say about them. They are independently operated, which means you can start a school and focus that school on a mission. But a key part of what is relevant for this academic discussion is that they operate under a contract with an authorizer. And that contract is a performance contract, and all these standards and tests and measures and the mission of the school need to reflect federal expectations, state expectations, community expectations, the mission of the school, and certainly what that authorizer is going to hold that school accountable to. So, as has already been said, with what's happened over the last 3 years, the educational impact that our kids have experienced, we need to get them back on track. And I think the public is asking us fairly, as leaders in Michigan, what are we going to do to get kids back on track? What's that plan? We need a more coherent accountability system. Before I go on, I would like to introduce Dr. Tashelle Jones. She's Vice President of School Performance for CS Partners.
Good morning. I'm pleased to be here today to provide you with testimony. As Dan mentioned, my name is Dr. Tashelle Jones. I've been a teacher, a long-time school administrator. I've served as a dean, assistant principal, superintendent, and currently I'm the vice president of school performance at CS Partners. I work directly with 20 schools and 8,000 students across Michigan. One specific school that I support that I'd like to kind of highlight today and talk to you about is Western Preparatory Academy. They're a kindergarten through 8th grade school. They're located in the city of Detroit. The students they serve are 99.6% eligible for free and reduced lunch. They have more than 250 students at their academy, and they care about their success. Some of their points of pride include their overall positive school culture, their teacher retention rate, and their increasing student growth scores on the M-STEP. In 2018-19, their school index score was 25%. Fast forward to 2021 and through a pandemic, their M-STEP student growth scores are 56%. At Western Preparatory Academy, academic accountability matters to the school, to the leaders, to the staff, to the parents. They hold parent informational sessions to inform the parents how the school is doing and their plans to continuously improve. Many prospective parents that are seeking enrollment in the school, they'll call, they'll ask questions about the information that they have reviewed on the My School Data dashboard. And also internally, staff and school leadership meet frequently to review the data, discuss their goals and objectives, and develop their next step action plans. The many years that I served as a school leader and what I observe with school leaders today, academic accountability does matter. School leaders take full responsibility for the things that happen in their buildings. And as a leader, we focus on clear and measurable goals. We create and communicate school-level goals for both the school as a whole and also each individual staff member, each department, and then those goals would be communicated to all of our stakeholders. Well, similarly, in my current role, overseeing principals and superintendents, I also care about academic accountability. It's important for me to know how a school is performing, not just internally, on their internal goals set, but also how they're faring to other schools and programs across Michigan. We want to know what we are doing well. We want to know how we can make adjustments, and we want to be able to share that information effectively with our stakeholders. So we've talked a little bit about school leaders and staff and parents, but student-focused academic accountability is also important for students as well. Student academic accountability is important because it encourages students to take responsibility for their learning and their actions. Students then can in turn learn to value their work and increase their levels of confidence, and we know all the positive things with that. So in closing, academic accountability does matter to all students, parents, school staff, and school leaders. We need academic accountability, and we want academic accountability for all of our schools. It does matter, and it's key, especially when it's in a language that the average person can understand. Thank you for your time and attention to and consideration to this important matter.
Thank you, and I also want to thank MAPSA for the feedback while this bill was being drafted, and also Dr. Jones, please forgive me again for mispronouncing your name.
Can I do just a couple wrap-up comments, because I want to make sure how this works for a charter school from an academic expert standpoint. There are a number of types of charter schools. They could be college prep. They could serve at-risk high school students. They may be culturally aware schools. We have a school in Southfield that serves 100 Ukrainian students. Lots of different issues that students and families bring to that school. That accountability matters to all of them. And so what Tashelle was talking about, what I'm trying to make sure we understand is that contract needs to reflect federal expectations, state expectations, the mission of the school, what an authorizer is going to hold them accountable to. And for charter schools, it means there's real consequences. If you're a low-performing charter school, you can't find a new authorizer under current law. You're going to be held accountable by the one you're working with. It also means that after some interventions, you might close. The state no longer funds a charter school that doesn't work. So the bill that's before us, and Mr. Chairman, thank you for working with us, has aspects in there. We feel more comfortable having an accountability system in state statute because we need to have something that's consistent. And that's not happened in Michigan. We've had half a dozen or more systems over the last 10, 15, 20 years. We want some consistency. We'd prefer it to be in statute, but these bills remove pieces and not other pieces. So yes, the index system seems to be working, but it's something that's not in statute. So we're neutral on the bill because there's a lot of complicated moving parts. We wanted you to understand there's some unique aspects to this, and we appreciate the opportunity to work with you to maintain something that's reliable, consistent, understandable, and actually will help Michigan move forward.
Thank you very much. And we have one question from Representative Green.
Absolutely.
So it just came to my head. You just mentioned that the accountability in statute, which is in that sub that we just got, are not all schools subject to accountability, or is it just charter schools?
Everyone's got consequences. There's certainly unique aspects like the shopping, anti-shopping, a prohibition from a low-performing charter school looking for a different authorizer. You would assume the intention would be for no other reason than getting a longer term of a contract while you're still performing low. You'd be required to stay with that existing authorizer because they're intervening in trying to correct the performance. Or after several significant interventions, the school will close and go away. Those are only applicable to charter public schools.
So they're not applicable to public schools then? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we still have a couple more to go. I'm going to also emphasize we do have a hard stop at 10:20. So for the group still remaining, please bear that in mind. I think we've got 2, maybe 3, depending on the way these cards are written. Next up, I would like to invite Brad Williams with the Grand Rapids Chamber, but I also see business leaders, which then I have a separate card for business leaders, and that was Lindsay Case Pelsrock. Do you want to come up together?
Yep, we're all coming up together.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Brad Williams. I lead the government relations and public policy work for the Detroit Regional Chamber. The Chamber, along with our colleagues in Grand Rapids and Business Leaders for Michigan, have been true leaders in raising standards for Michigan schools. Our advocacy on K-12 public policy is critical to our mission to help employers meet their talent needs. In Detroit, this includes decades of partnership with stakeholders to improve quality, give parents and students good choices of school regardless of governance model, and focus on closing equity gaps, particularly for low-income students. The Chamber and our partners have been at the front line of nearly every major education policy conversation for the last 2 decades plus. Our message is consistent and simple. Our organizations support high standards for students and accountability mechanisms that both highlight our successes and allow for interventions where we find districts or buildings that are struggling. At the Chamber, our education work is focused on policy like the bill before you today, and programmatic work. We're the home of the Detroit Promise. Our CEO is also the co-chair of the Coalition for the Future of Detroit School Students. Together, each of our organizations played an early role in the creation of Launch Michigan. So in short, K-12 education is a business issue. We stand together today in opposing this bill, not because we think the current system is perfect, as you've heard throughout testimony today, but because we believe it represents an accountability system that is useful to parents, education, students, and community members. Not perfect, but at least useful. We should be working to improve our accountability system rather than disassembling it. I would like to hand it over to my colleague to my right, Lindsay Case-Palsrock from Business Leaders for Michigan. Lindsay has a long history on many of these issues. She was originally a member of the chamber team for about 8 years before moving on. She is the leading expert on the intersection of business policy and talent. And after that, our colleague Nate Henschel from the Grand Rapids Chamber would like to share some perspective as well. But with that, I'll hand it over to Lindsay. I know she's got some slides that she has shared with you as well.
Thank you, everyone. I'll just use this to flip through because it's easier with some visual aids. But I am Lindsay Case-Palsrock with Business Leaders for Michigan, and I am very uncomfortable being called an expert. I'll just start there. But I am a student, and while we are not educators, despite my stint substitute teaching in the Upper Peninsula, we are students of the best systems that we see around the nation and the country, and we've spent over a decade really studying and trying to understand what are those systems that talk to each other and communicate and give the right type of feedback to both educators as well as parents. So if we could quickly move through these slides, I think we just wanted to kind of zoom up and highlight, I think, kind of more of the global issue here. And I think we've heard many things today that resonate and really ultimately want to work together and maybe have talked to, the chair about this is kind of a longer term conversation as well, in our opinion. If you want to really, as a parent, figure out, what's the best school for your kid, where do you look? That's the question. And I think one of the things that we would be remiss if we didn't mention is that the most interface parents likely have with school ranking systems is on websites that a few of us visit from time to time, Zillow and Realtor.com, right? And I myself find myself browsing from time to time and see these rankings. Which, they use great schools, which is frankly something that, without getting into a lot of debate, is I would think less sophisticated than the systems we have in Michigan, and is more likely to be a proxy for poverty and not use some of those growth metrics and things that we know are important to kind of equalize, the factor that poverty plays in education outcomes. So you'll see simple, things like 2 out of 10 here. So I like this house, but I scroll down and see. For this school, their overall is a 2 of 10, student progress 3 of 10, equity 1 of 10, right? Doesn't sound too great, but I like the house, so maybe I keep looking. I don't know. But if you look for more official information, obviously we know the Michigan Department of Education is where folks may visit, and in particular, my school data is, I think, the one that gets the most traffic. And we know that right now there are many different, we'll call them systems to consult, but really probably fairer is to say, tools, which is the grades, the index, the A to F grading system, the index, as well as the parent dashboard. So, a quick screenshot here of A to F, I think everyone's pretty familiar with it, and the 5 different components in which receive a letter grade, and then the 3 that receive a ranking on that's relative, attendance and test participation, et cetera. I think largely this feels, simple, and it reads simple, and it seems parent friendly, but we understand that this is a larger conversation, right, about how these things communicate together and what message that sends. So next, I've got some screenshots here from the parent dashboard, and I think the parent dashboard, my school data's kind of, main page there is actually pretty helpful. I think that visually it's easy to navigate, but the reality is it represents over 30 sets of data and information that are on a wide variety of things, right? On student data, staff data, school services and offerings. So if you're doing that deep dive, this is certainly something that I think is helpful. But I think ultimately the problem with that is that the school index, which we see here, and the parent dashboard are siloed, right? So what you see in a lot of other states is that the parent dashboard like that would interface, I think Representative Glanville talked about being able to dive into the data. And I think a lot of parents do want to look at some of those deeper things and disaggregate it. But the index and the dashboard actually one is not a double click of the other, right? They're actually kind of living as two completely separate systems, if you will, and or tools as maybe a fair way to say that. And then, the index is the one that I think is not only in its ease in finding it on the website, it's the one that is the most, I think, confusing to interpret, right? So what 0 to 100 scale, but what is a 100, right? Actually, 100 represents a goal the MD set as part of their ESSA plan, and that's a goal that's frankly in itself quite confusing, right? So I think someone may look and say 39%, that looks like an F. Someone might say 39 out of 100, but what is 100, right? A lot of questions, I think. And I'll just read something from the MDE website to show, I think, the lack of parent-friendly language here. For each component, its index value is multiplied by its percent weight to get its weighted index. Then component weighted index values are summed to get the overall school level index, right? So I'm a parent of I don't know what that means. I actually don't know what that means, right? So you can kind of see here the double click on this is as confusing as the summative factors above. So leaves a lot to be desired in terms of clear, right? And so the last point I'll make about the index is that the index is the system, right? So, when No Child Left Behind was converted to ESSA, or the feds, started re-legislating, we by law have to have an accountability system, and it has to do certain things, right? And the index is the one that was submitted ultimately in the application approved by the federal government. So any interventions that happened under ESSA by law are triggered by the index, right? So if you're a school leader or an educator, I think the most confusing system being the one that triggers whether or not you're a partnership district, et cetera, is a challenging prospect, I think. I think, our ESSA plan reads that the most intensive support, so the largest consequences is partnership district status. And we would say that it's not really a stick, it's kind of it's meant to be a different approach, and frankly, some of the data out of MSU is saying that it's actually working fairly well, and that these districts actually receive funding to help implement this. And our recommendation would be to fully fund partnership districts. Legislatures in the past have funded at about half of what MDE has recommended. We think this is a good intervention, I guess. But ultimately, the index is a ranking. So as a school leader, I can't determine what it is I need to do to improve my ranking, right? So, because it's relative to others' performance. So I can't pull out the growth section or whatever section and say, if we do this much better on this, my ranking, or my rating rather, will improve, because it's relative to the performance of other schools. So it's not predictive, and districts can't really understand how to strategize to improve. So what's a better way? Frankly, we could talk all day about the various systems across the state, but real quick, I highlighted two, Texas and Massachusetts. Here in Texas, we see kind of a letter grading system that doesn't look terribly different from ours, but it does actually have something ours doesn't, which is a summative grade. And the index is summative, right? But what's a 67? I don't know what it is, right? And so, you see it really looks at the same type of factors, growth, grad rate, et cetera, but it does give an overall grade of an A, B, C, D, F. Here's Massachusetts, and I would say they have something that's more like an index, and it is a ranking, not a rating. So in that way, it falls short there, from our opinion. But all the data is in one location. So you're given an accountability percentile. So right, that at least we're familiar with percentiles from, NAEP and everything else, right? Where you fall amongst 100 peers, I'm 1 or I'm 99, right? Or I'm 67. But what it really does, I think that's much better than we do, is that the data, the disaggregated data, is a double click of the system, right? So if I want to dive into those details, I'm looking at the weighted measures that made up the score. I'm not looking at 30 random data factors on another website or another page, right? So that, I think, is really key. So what are our goals, in this kind of longer term conversation? Clarity. We believe that parents deserve something that's clear. I think we all agree on that, or most do in this room. Consistency. we do agree multiple systems and dashboards, it doesn't work. Well, we have less accountability, not more, when we have multiple. We know that's true, right? What is the vision? At Business Leaders for Michigan, our whole goal is around being a top 10 state for educational attainment, for median income, et cetera. And our K-12, system is really, really important to our members. And so the vision really is to have an aspirational goal where we work to improve outcomes, and for all children, so that we've got widely shared opportunity no matter what your zip code is. And really to celebrate excellence when we see it, right? We've got, something that the A-to-F does is the peer group schools, right? So I can see demographically similar schools. Wow, look, what are they doing over here, right? Like they're way kind of kicking out of their weight class. I think I mixed two sports analogies there, but out kicking their coverage, punching above their weight, whatever. And so that's something that, I think we really want to be able to celebrate and use to say positive things about performance. And then equity, right? The harder it is to understand how our student subgroups are doing compared to others, the harder time we have leaning in on equity and the investments that we need there. So I will stop, hand it over to Nate to kind of talk about some of our work over the last few years and where we think ultimately this could and should go.
Okay, really quick, just again, we do have a hard stop in 8 minutes, so if you could be brief, I'd really appreciate it because I still have one more group that wants to speak.
I'll chop this down. So thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, members of the committee. I'll forego my remarks here a bit and just summarize. In the end, we just want one system that's clear to understand for parents to be able to know what the school grading is, and then for the schools to be able to go forth and have a system in which they can get better. And I think truly it's about moving students forward. I think for us, we would love the opportunity, if there's one, to be had to sit down and work through some of these best practices that certainly been uncovered, that have been a part of the Launch Michigan framework, and to really be a part of that collective process to figure out what can we have in place that has the accountability and the transparency and the ease to understand for parents what a school system, how they are actually performing. So I'll forgo my paragraphs here, and thanks for the opportunity, but hopefully we can be a part of that process and certainly look forward to it. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. We do have one question, and then we are going to move on to our final speaker of the day.
I'll be quick. Thank you all for presenting. I appreciate the perspective that you have on this topic. I need to kind of clarify for myself today. What we are talking about in the bill before us, the potential bill before us, is getting rid of the A-to-F system and keeping the school and then just having the one system. And if we want to go forward, and we've all talked about how it's not perfect, if we want to go forward and make changes, that would be something we do additionally in a different bill.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Last but not least, we have Matt Schuler and I believe it is the superintendent of Norway Vulcan Schools, Lou. Is it Steigelwald? Steigelwald. I blame the handwriting. But, representing the Michigan Association of School Administrators, and also Mr. Schuler, happy birthday. Thank
you. Before I start, I know we have not a lot of time, but I used to work at LSB, and I just wanted to let everyone know that this is Donna, our brilliant attorney's last House Education Committee hearing. Thanks for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Matt Schuler. I'm the Director of Government Relations for the Michigan Association of Superintendents and Administrators. We represent public school superintendents and central office administrators in the state of Michigan. We are supportive of this bill that would repeal the A-to-F letter grading system. This system was passed at the end of a lame duck session with little thought put into its implementation and without the input of educators and parents. It's repetitive of existing accountability systems, misleading, and does a disservice to our schools. First, as we've already heard, we would submit that MDE has already developed and implemented a more holistic accountability system that provides metrics based on 20 different factors. That's the parent dashboard. And then, again, there's also the federal school index system that gives schools a summary score on a 1 to 100 scale. Simply put, the A-to-F system is repetitive of these systems, and these systems do a better job informing parents of what strengths and areas of improvements particular schools have. Furthermore, the A-to-F grading system's factors place a heavy emphasis on a once-a-year high-stake standardized test. Reducing a school's performance to a once-a-year test does nothing to improve our public schools. We are not opposed to accountability and transparency. If anything, and Lou can talk about this, Our reporting and transparency requirements have only increased, especially recently. But reducing a school's learning environment and its ability to meet parents' needs to a letter is not productive and fails to recognize that schools around the state have local needs and local issues that cannot be boiled down to such a simple metric. This law was born out of a misguided notion that you can shame schools into high performance instead of giving them the support they need to succeed. While this type of system was a popular trend across the country a few years ago, there's little evidence that this type of accountability has increased school performance, and less than 15 states now use this type of system. We look forward to working with committee members and the entire legislature on actual solutions that will support our students in schools, adequate funding, solving the educator shortage, and respecting educators. I'm now going to turn it over to Lou, Superintendent of Norway Vulcan Schools, to kind of share a little bit from the ground level on this and all the other systems that we have.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, committee, for being here and being concerned about education. From far away in the upper peninsula, we don't get to see you or hear you very often, so it's nice to be here with you today.
We brought the weather for you.
Yeah, apparently I brought the weather with me, sorry. So as a school district, we are responsible for multiple reports. As you know, we've got the AER report, you've got my school data, and now you've got this report card. There's more than enough information out there. I would say as an example for this particular report, my student subgroup performance for my middle school is significantly above average. My performance among peers is a D. That doesn't make any sense. Significantly above average, scores a D. What's a parent going to think about that? I don't know. I'm confused myself. So we do a lot of reporting. My school data has a ton of reports on it. It is true what the gentleman to my right stated about it being a survey of poverty. Most often these are exactly a survey of poverty. We do have a high poverty district, and in that same district, I'm not allowed to talk about it currently, but one of my schools is about to receive a significant reward for the work we do with Students for Poverty, but another school, same district, performance among peers is a D. It's very confusing. So we do a lot of reporting as it is. There's significant amount of data out there, and I would just close with, I have yet to have a parent come to my district and speak to me and say, hey, let's talk about AER. Hey, let's talk about my school data. Hey, let's talk about the school report card. I've yet to have a parent say any of those things to me, and yet we do all this reporting to a significant level.
Thank you, and safe travels back to the UP too. I know it's quite a hike, so thank you very much. With that, okay, we have no questions. Thank you very much. I'm going to now read cards that have come in. Not wishing to speak, supporting the bill, Kara Weaver from Detroit Public Schools Community District. Not wishing to speak, supporting the bill, Joe DeVault, Macomb ISD. Not wishing to speak, supporting the bill, Chris Glass, Education Advocates of West Michigan. Not wishing to speak, supporting the bill, Bob Kefkin from Michigan Association of Secondary School Principals. Not wishing to speak, supporting the bill, Peter Spatafor, Michigan Alliance for Student Opportunity. Not wishing to speak, supporting the bill, Mike Latvis, Wayne Risa. Not wishing to speak, supporting the bill, David Randalls, Oakland Schools. Not wishing to speak, supporting the bill, Dr. David Michelson, Michigan Education Association. Not wishing to speak, neutral on the bill, Jason Mancini from Michigan Council of Charter School Authorizers. Not wishing to speak, opposing the bill, Molly Masick from Mackinac Center for Public Policy. Not wishing to speak, opposing the bill, Beth Deshone, Great Lakes Education Project Education Fund. And with that, Representative Johnson moves to excuse absent members without objection so ordered, and there being no further business before the committee will stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.